You are listening to the e-flux podcast.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Sana Al-Majidi, and I'm the performance curator at e-flux. I'm pleased to present Kinetic painting with Samia Halaby and Amir ElSaffar. Tonight's performance will be followed by a brief Q&A between me and Samia Halaby, and then at the end, we'll open for questions with the audience.
Thank you everyone for coming. It's a pleasure to see you all. And with permission from my co-art worker, artist, I am going to say a word or two about Gaza. I am Palestinian. I'm born in Jerusalem. That was before the state of Israel was created. I've been in Gaza many times, Gaza in the Jerusalemite accent, not Gaza. And one of the memorable times I was there is when I took with me a friend to test if they were using depleted uranium in Gaza, and that was in 2003 or 2002. I'm not sure remembering the year exactly. And things were horrible then. I saw all manner of things. The one image that pressed itself on my memory was a gondola hanging from a long pole, and in it were soldiers that were sniping at people in their tents. That was over 22 years ago. I always went to Gaza for the artists who were there. I worked with them. I got to know them, young and older ones my age, and some very young ones. I used to bring their work out. We had exhibitions of their work. We had a committee called Arab Women Artists. And for all my trips to Gaza, I found the people there possessed something, some revolutionary spirit, some collectivism, something that I loved and admired. The Gaza population was something very beautiful. And right now I see their beauty, all their dying, their suffering, and their behavior, their moral stability, their love for each other, their respect for society and what holds a society together is very moving to me. So as a Palestinian, a fellow Palestinian, some of the beauty you will see in my work belongs to Gaza. Some of that beauty is the beauty of the people who are being killed right now. Thank you.
Samia, the first thing I wanted to ask you is to give some context to the performance and explain how you got into computing programming.
I got into computing because I wanted to move forward with painting, and literally what I've been quoted at is totally accurate. I was interested in painting, and I always think of painting not as necessarily pigment on a canvas, but anything that makes an image, mosaic, stained glass. So all of that was and flat. I've always felt, that flat images were far more sophisticated than 3D ones, and certainly very different from creative writing. So as a painter, I knew from my education in the Midwest with very radical professors, because it was the industrial union movement at the time, that there were hints that clearly the best art in all of history took place at revolutionary times. So I began to look at all art history and question all my education. And then I said, well, Samia, if you are a painter of your time, you have to use the technology of the time, besides which computers are interesting.
What year did you get into computers, and when did you get your first computer?
The first time I had my hands on a computer was my sister's Apple II in the early 80s. And then when I finally decided it's time to get one, because it was the first years of the personal computer. I had an invitation once to work on a mainframe because all of the art done during the 60s were artists working with programmers using the mainframe. So with a personal computer, I could do it. I didn't have to have a university or a big corporation behind me. And so I went shopping, and I found the people who sold didn't know anything about them, and I didn't know anything about them. So it's like the ignorant reading the ignorant. But I did ask how many colors the PC had, and at that time it had 4 colors. And the Amiga came as a very sexy new computer. It had multitasking and everything. And I thought, I saw all these colors on it. I asked, how do you do that? What's the instructions? Are there books on it? I had no answers. I said, if someone did the promotion on the Amiga, certainly I could figure it out. So I bought it.
So you started on the Amiga, and what did you make on it? Because this program, or what you were using right now, isn't from that time, right? It came a little later.
It started about 4 years later, I would say. I got the Amiga in '86. It was a blowout sales at the financial district. The financiers did not like the Amiga, and I got a lot of games with it. But I got the manuals, which was very important to me. So I sat down and began to program in 1986, and I sank into a deep hole. You know, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to do anything else. At that time, I had a friend who lived with me, and he came home and he cooked, and forget it. You could feed me, but you weren't getting me away from the computer.
Just to explain to everyone, what we saw was actually something you programmed. Like, you didn't use a software to create this, but you created the software yourself.
Yes, that's true. This is programmed. And 2 days ago, I thought I lost it and I'd have to cancel this event. And I'm still using this machine. That I'm using is a legacy laptop, and it's a prison box. You know, nothing comes out of it or goes into it. And I've managed to get the program into another legacy, which has a functioning disk drive. So once I get it out, I will copy some of what's in here by hand into the less well-developed one and the other one. And then I have friends lined up to help me try and put it on new computers. But 2 days ago, when I thought it was out, I was trying to put more red colors in there, and I must have accidentally written into prohibited territory. And so it stopped, and I thought it was for good, but it came back to life. Thank God.
Yes, thank God. So do you consider that the program is the artwork, or what we see on the screen?
Is the artwork? That's a good question, and I answered it at the very beginning, saying it's the computer itself is the actual artwork. Then, as experience developed with people wanting to exhibit it, especially in recent years, I began to realize that when I sat at the computer, the screen filled my field of sight. It wasn't like a little postage stamp far away on the wall. So we went to Abu Dhabi, where there's plenty of money, and they made 2 billboard-sized screens, LEDs on the beach. Can you imagine an LED that's as big as a billboard standing in the middle of the beach? And they turn it on at night, and it was playing this stuff I programmed on a 480 by 640 screen, a 4:3, and it looked good. And when I do it on the Apple, it also looks good. So it is. They ask me, how big do you want it? I say, think of the viewer. It should fill the viewer's field of vision, and that's what it should be. And I think the artwork is between your brain and whatever material is showing it. You participate by, you look at it, you think.
How has computing influenced your paintings, since you said that painting is like your primary medium?
Well, what I do on the computer is painting. It may have the charm or the glitz of being digital, but it's actually painting. And it is what this computer teaches painting and what painting teaches. I mean, I wouldn't have done these if I weren't a painter already. And I came to it as a mature painter. And so I think it's just a different media. You do work on paper, you do oil, you do stained glass. Someone had me do stained glass, except that the medium here is very interesting and different. It contributes to painting in that the envelope of the artwork is no longer just a rectangle or a flat screen, one-time single image flat screen. It is time-based, and things can move, and things can have a sound. And also, in discussion recently about this new program that I'm using, it's also it permeates the medium itself. And I was using a metaphor like, what if I had my oil paint tubes and I could squeeze my blue and it could paint squares by itself? Well, this is what happens here. I programmed this in the 90s, but I'm performing today. So a really big question for me is, what is the date of this artwork? Is it when I programmed it in between 1989 and 1996? Or is it now when I perform it? The fact is that anybody who plays with this program is creating my artwork, because every time I push a button, it goes to something that I visually arranged and liked and approved and fussed around with. And it's just like making paintings. You do something, you back off, you like it. You never decide if you like it if you're a painter when your nose is in the painting. We all know as painters it hangs on the wall, so we have to back up. So we're back and forth all the time. Is it work? It doesn't work. I change it. I get angry with it. It goes on and on. With the computer, it's the same. I do it. I like it. I do the next move. I link compile. Is it good? Yes, I do. I keep going. If not, I go back and change it. It's just exactly the same process of work. But there was always things in my painting before, in my work on paper, that referred to numbers and this fascination with what if we could do these things. I used to think a line looking at nature, the highway crosses a farmer's field and divides it into two sections. Sometimes you slice an apple and you move the parts from each other. So I'm thinking about line cutting shape, and I'm thinking in a way that I thought the computer would do it. I came to the computer and I found out it's just a machine. It wasn't going to do anything for me unless I told it how to do it. So, but those ideas were there about using action and reaction and growth.
I know you collaborated with a musician today, so have you ever tried to make your own sounds to go along with the images?
With the Amiga, I did,
yes.
And at first, everyone just said, "Do you have a 10 ear?" I said, "No, it's not music, it's just sound. They're just signals." Oh, it sounded like an arcade, video arcade. Well, they do. I got very insulted. But times have changed. Now people like them. Ding dong or whatever. Ding ding tick tick tick. But when I saw musicians collaborating impromptu in the jazz method, and in the Arabic method of irtijal, I began to think I would like to collaborate with them. And this is what brought this program on. Attending, not SIGGRAPH, which was the expensive programmers who worked in advertising. That's the conference that I went to often, but I didn't fit. Where I fit was a conference run by an engineer in Philadelphia called Small Computers and the Arts. And most of them were electronic musicians. And after the day's meetings would be over, they'd be on the stage, jamming. And I thought, wow, it would be fun to jam with them. So this is the result of that wish.
So that you created this program specifically to be able to improvise with musicians, say?
That was and then later I thought, wow, I'd like to put some sound to it, so I'm not relying on musicians. But then that a whole became aware that that's a whole new world that I didn't have time to get into. So we have Amir ElSaffar, who was great to collaborate with, and a great musician that I admire a great deal. And thank you for working with me, Amir. Here he is. Yeah, thank you.
Can you speak more about that process, like collaborating with Amir? I know Amir has used your artwork before as the cover of one of his albums. So he's been an admirer of yours for a long time, and this is your first collaboration together on the stage. How was that process preparing for the show and getting to know each other, like in an artistic way?
Well, I confessed to him right away that I know nothing about music, which is true. And I asked him questions, and he told me some things which were very interesting. So we talked, but I don't know about it, but we also have intuitions of what we like and what fits. There were times where I followed him and times where he was being inspired by my work. But, he's also doing his own artwork and I'm doing my artwork, and they're working together. There's a level at which we're two separate artists in this work and a very strong musician. So it was good to work with someone who's my equal in creative power and polish. So I appreciated that. But it's difficult, when you're two musicians jamming and you practice together, you're influencing each other much more. My program is not that versatile. And when he picks up the trumpet or is it a trumpet or something else? What is it called? Yeah, when he picks up that and it's an analog device, you hear the sophistication of the device, of the instrument. And he makes the electronic sound very sophisticated, but my program is, in terms of visual material, is still not that sophisticated. And that's partly because I've chosen to be an abstract painter. So I have rejected shading and perspective. And there's a whole logic to that, and I'm persuaded. We painters did perspective and shading 400 years ago. Enough, let's move forward. So I chose a language that's very difficult. But it works, and the computer, gives us something. And I'm fascinated by what it contributes to painting.
Since we're running out of time, I wanted to see if anyone in the audience also had questions for Samia.
Thank you so much. This has been really amazing, and I've been so looking forward to it. And yeah, thank you for everyone involved. I just was wondering if you can talk a bit about text, like how you think about text in your compositions, and yeah.
No, I'm a painter.
But like the words that appeared in this.
Those were titles to the pieces. In my posters, I put words. I'm not shy about it. But my posters are political, I'm saying, want peace, dismantle Israel. I can't do that with a painting, so I make it very clear.
Thank you so much again. This has been really, really incredible. I wanted to ask a bit about, if you could speak a little bit about each of the pieces that were shown and the inspiration, particularly the Baghdad piece was very beautiful and moving. Is there a
particular one you liked?
Baghdad.
Baghdad was inspired, and the high speed of it. The images there were written beforehand, of course, and I've used them in a piece called Rhythms in the past. But because Amir used the centaur, am I saying it correctly? There was something that clicked between the two. And so I went at high speed when he was going at when he went into voice, I slowed down because it seemed out of context to go bam, 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 bam all the time. And when he wasn't doing voice, I was following some of his rhythm. But the shapes came out of the shapes. The reason I like the black and white is because there's a negative, positive. They help each other. That is very strong there. And other pieces, for example, Brass Woman has a very particular dedication. Brass Woman was inspired by the Afro and Latino women that I used to admire so much when I was an activist in the 80s and 90s. And so, your brass bell, I had a brass bell from remembering my grandmother, which Amir used mostly in that first piece called Yafa. And so that piece is dedicated to those women, to women of African origin and to women of Latin origin. And I use the word brass because their voices were as clear as a brass bell in a way. So it's just a very strong voice and a very clear intellectual delivery always. So that piece will always be untouched as that piece. Those forms are inspired also by shapes of women, the sort of rounded but not circular. What other piece is there? Oh, Prairie is definitely one I'm very pleased about because I'm using the program to create things that remind you of grass and branches. Nature is all about geometry, but it gets much more complicated than our geometry. And you think of buildings, you think of the right angle. The most complex geometry I know in our human architecture is the four-leaf clover highway, which is amazing. It takes traffic crossing each other and puts it on 2 levels, and it still crosses and works. So, but here we are, we're all in rectangular boxes all the time. But you look at a maple leaf or you look at a very complex petal, you'll see a structure that's geometric, but also far more complex than our building. So that's why I'm very pleased about it, but it's very primitive compared to what nature can do. But I'm trying to compete. I don't know. Yafa is a dedication to the city in Palestine where I grew up as a child. In English, it's called Jaffa. And what other pieces did I have? Symmetry was used to be called ISIS because I worked with a conference once that had the name initials ISIS, International Symposium of something symmetry. So it came down to ISIS. Then when the America invented ISIS came around, I didn't know what to do. So with Safar around, he encouraged me to call it symmetry. And passing past is a fun term. Someone asked about words, so I'm playing with words there. Passing past is about the past that passed, but it is also about passing things, about moving, but it's really a pedestrian idea of mine. You walk down the sidewalk and the rectangle of the building suddenly distorts and becomes narrow, and then it gets wide, and it does. If you're paying attention to what your eyes are seeing and brains are registering, motion lets you see some things in geometry that is amazing. So we're walking past geometric surfaces all the time.
We can take one more. Okay.
Thank you for such a beautiful and energizing performance. I wanted to ask, with your computer programs, how much of all the shapes and the positions of the shapes and the colors, how much of it is random and how much of it is determined and how much of it is repeated? I was trying to pick apart myself, but I thought I would ask you.
Everything that's there, a lot of accident takes place in the program. I can't control everything, so I accepted that as a fact from the beginning. But that's a nice thing to accept as a creative person, because sometimes we get a little too tightly in control of what we think is our expression. So I leave some things to happen, but everything in the program is a program command. There's nothing that is scanned or copied, and all of it is intentional. So, for example, I make a shape, and then I take a function, I put a switch in it, and every time, and let's say the switch goes around 6 times. The switch is six items in the switch. It could be much longer, of course. And each time it goes into the function, if you're a programmer, static variables. And so it'll go the first iteration, the second iteration, the third iteration. Meanwhile, the colors are unpredictable because I'm manipulating colors on a pre-planned palette of 250 colors. So I don't really know what's going to happen. When I hit this big circles, I'm wishing it would be this color, but I don't get what I want. But I do have some control. I could choose palettes, like you've seen me choose a dark palette or a white palette or a bright colored palette by hitting so I have about 17 or 20 palettes I can choose between. And I have timers, I hit the function keys, they all have timers, so they keep repeating. They keep going back and asking for the same function all over again. And this function draws a line, vertical line, and it travels from this end to that end. So when I stop it, it'll stop right there, but then I start it again, it'll keep traveling. So you saw my windshield wiper going back and forth. So I don't know how to answer it. It's all very, very carefully programmed and intentional. But because the way it's programmed, I can't predict. So I don't know what's going to happen exactly. And the variables are humongous, but within a limited range of appearance. You understand what I mean? I mean, the variables, what can happen, there could be millions upon millions upon millions of results if I work for 5 minutes. But at the same time, you'd be bored because they'd all look the same, similar. They're similar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Samia. Thank you, everybody who came. Please give her another round of applause.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you. Stand up. Yeah.